everyone, welcome to the Introduction to Permaculture course here at Index for the Next World. I'm Rachel Economy and I'll be your facilitator for this course, which we are calling Dig into Permaculture. So for our first video, we're going to talk about just the core question of what is permaculture? And throughout these videos, I'll be offering bits of information, practices, principles, going through the foundational principles and design process of permaculture. And I'll also be offering opportunities for you to stop or pause and write or sketch or think or brainstorm or try things. You can take those as they come through the video, or you can watch the video once through and then go back and do the activities. But they are set up for you to do them as you go along through the video so that we can be in collaboration even through this virtual medium. So the first thing I want to ask you to do before we get into any introductions about who I am in the context of permaculture, what my background is, and what permaculture even is the same thing I would invite you to do if we were together in person, which is to pause the video and write or draw the answers or the ends to these prompts. So the first prompt is, one thing I think might be true about permaculture is. One thing I think might be true about permaculture is. And then the second one is, something I'm wondering about permaculture is. Something I'm wondering about permaculture is. So go ahead and pause the video and write or draw or dance your response or your completion of those two prompts. Welcome back. It's totally fine if your completion of both of those prompts was, I don't know anything about permaculture. I don't even know enough to wonder something. Totally fine. But often in this part of the class, lots of things come up that are very true about permaculture, and also some things come up around concerns or feelings of inaccessibility around permaculture, particularly around the language that can sometimes feel jargony, including the name permaculture. It's a beautiful word, but it can also feel like a barrier to entry. And that's what we're going to break down today, because we're not about barriers. Permaculture is about integrating what has been separated. So first, just an introduction of myself in this context, because you may see me around here or hear me around here in a lot of different contexts. I have been working in sustainable agriculture, resilient ecological gardening education. So I do the teaching of those things as well as the doing of them for over a decade now, in a lot of different contexts, from urban gardens to small rural farms, a lot of different ages of education, young kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, adults, working with folks of a lot of different abilities in those contexts as well. And in that time, I have also taken 2 permaculture design certificates and a permaculture teacher training course. And I want to acknowledge my teachers in those courses, because part of permaculture is acknowledging lineages of knowledge and lineages of pattern and information and observation. So my teachers, Grace Odell and Jacob Holzberg-Pill, of my first permaculture design certificate, Toby Hemingway, Rest in Power, of my second one, and then Pandora Thomas and Lisa DiPiano taught my women's permaculture teacher training. And those are all great people to check out online. They all have different online presences, and you can learn a lot about permaculture and some of the things sort of peripheral to or connected to permaculture through their online offerings or teachings. So something that I feel passionately curious about permaculture, to complete the prompt for myself with you, is I'm always wondering how to make it more accessible. And that means a lot of different things, right? Access can mean financial accessibility. It can mean time accessibility. Does it fit with the schedule of a working parent or someone who only has 2 usable hours of energy in a day? Way of delivery, is it accessible, right? So some people can't show up physically for a class, but they can learn online. Is it accessible to me as a teacher? I also sometimes can't show up physically, but I can teach online. Can it be done at your own pacing? And then also, of course, the learning style, right? How is the course taught in such a way that it's accessible to a lot of different learning styles. So those are some examples, but it is always a curiosity and a dedication of mine to think of more ways of access. And also, just to name, I think the jargon issue is an issue of access. And so thinking about how to make the really powerful and delicious patterns and knowledge that is inherent in this body of learning really, really accessible, rather than an expertise or niche thing, because it comes from everywhere and everybody who's lived on land. And we're not trying to make it niche or inaccessible. We're trying to share it among ourselves. So that's my position about permaculture. I have a background in democratic pedagogy, in emergent pedagogy, pedagogy meaning way of teaching, right? The philosophy and then enactment of teaching. And so I care a lot more about process than having you memorize a bunch of different types of trees. Because the great thing is, we got books, we got the internet, we got other people who are tree experts if you want to look up a bunch of different kinds of trees. I'm not going to tell you what kinds of trees to plant. First of all, that's not how permaculture works. It's a design process more than it is a set of trees that you should plant. We'll talk more about that later on. But also, I'm really here to support you in becoming a learner and a designer of permaculture, right? So the how is way more important to me than the what. And I think it's important to acknowledge that up front, both because it's part of what's unique and important about this course, and if that's not what you're looking for and you want someone to train you on tree identification, so do I. Love some tree identification. This might not be the course where you're going to learn that. You will learn definition, core ethics, principles, design process, practices, and some strategies for what should you plant where and how could you plant them together that can be applied in a lot of different contexts.